Welcome to the Bison Brothers Basketball Podcast, your number one home for all things Bison basketball. I'm your host, Chip Washington, the self-appointed Bison basketball fanatic.
What's up? What's up, family? It's your boy Brian B. Smooth Foston, lover of all things basketball, lover of all things Howard, fresh off a trip back from Norfolk, and can't wait to talk about my findings and surroundings in beautiful Norfolk, Virginia. E, what's up, baby?
What's up, man? It's E-Wash. Still in love, still got a basketball Jones, but definitely in couples therapy.
So listen up. This is the episode we were maybe not looking so forward to. We spent the last 17, 18 weeks building up to this week of tournament play, because in the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, it isn't how you start, it's how you finish. And so over 17 weeks, we were able to have fun with always ending every episode with the hope that we could potentially be going to, on the men's side, a three-peat. Maybe win one more time and make a trip to one of these remote destinations they send us to play as a 15 or 16 seed. Or it was a chance for us to say, hey, for the women, this is a chance for us to see what's going on, and maybe we can break the hump. We've been in the championship game 5 years running, and it's been a few years since we've been able to make it back to the big dance. So we were coming up to this week to understand, could we three-peat? Could we get over the hump? Could we make it to championship Saturday? And before we jump into the recap there and talk about what we do, because we want to make sure we come at you from everything we learned last week in Norfolk. Chip, why do we do what we do, man?
Bison Nation, this is episode 18, and we're going to continue to tell you why we are doing this. We want Bison Nation worldwide to support these championship teams, the Dream Factory, Mecca Made, championship culture. You can support these teams in so many ways. For the ladies, we're down to just one more game. It's going to be at the BURR, so you can go to the game Friday, butts in seats, support this championship culture, and just continue to spread the word about the teams and support them. You can donate to the Name, Image, and Likeness Collective, the Mecca Society. You can do that by going to the meccasociety.org. Donate, that'll support directly the programs, the basketball programs, football programs, everything. You can also go to hubison.com and donate directly to the athletic department or to the Booster Club, which is the Bison Express Booster Club. So many ways that you can give your dollars to the programs. So continue to donate and support the programs. And as always, please tell everybody about the podcast.
Yes.
The number one home for Bison basketball, the Bison Brothers Basketball Podcast. Yes. You can listen to us on YouTube, on Spotify.
That's right.
On Apple. You can follow us on Instagram at Bison Brothers Basketball. So share the podcast. Hit that like button, like the podcast, comment on the podcast. Tell us what you want to hear so that we can continue to grow and cultivate this worldwide fan base. And we're going to get into it on this show, tourney recap. We're going to make it happen. Fellas, you know how we do. Let's go.
Oh, man. I'm always hyped, brother. I don't have my wallet handy enough for all these appeals. By the time you get halfway through all the appeals, I run out of money. I got to pace myself better. You've given me a plethora of ways to give back. And I can tell you right now, hanging out with some of the staff, the athletic director, shout out Kerry Davis and his staff, our basketball programs, Coach Kenny Blakeney and his staff representing the Dream Factory, as well as Coach Ty Grace and BD and everybody over there that's helping us really make sure the women's game gets their due, because they're actually building a championship culture and a dog mentality. not one person thought it was robbery to stop and say, we really love what you guys are doing with the Bison Brothers Basketball podcast. We thank you for bringing another spin in a channel where it's coming from a place of pure love for Howard University and athletics. So, Chip, these appeals, they matter. They matter. And the more we can tell people how to get involved and maybe help direct them, the more we'll see our impact, as just faithful alum turn leaders of Bison Nation turn into fruition in terms of seeing butts and seats at the BURR and other places where we travel. So it's going to be exciting. I know for me, for those listening in, we have a tendency to have a flow to this. Today will be pretty similar. We're going to get into the recap of the tournament. We'll start with our guys, since they only had one game to talk about, and then we'll talk about the run that the ladies took us on. And obviously there was a high note as we talked about at the beginning of the show. And then we'll get into what's good for basketball. E-Wash is good for connecting some dots. This week, maybe it won't be a reference to Larry Bird, but I'm pretty sure it will be. We just need to Bird should have been a Bison. That's my synopsis for the year. But once we get through what's good for basketball, we're going to take liberties to talk about collectively some over and under reactions from the season. And we'll probably spread some flowers and make sure people smell flowers, because there was some noteworthy performances and accolades that we saw our teams get as part of the festivities last week. So before we get into it, fellas, we have to warm up differently. Chip got us ready to give, but on behalf of the Showtime Marching Band, I hung out with them and some of their studious bass players, because they were trying to figure out how to bring some more funk and sounds. Let's get a little dance going before we get into the recap, sir.
Yeah.
I done danced myself out the shelter.
This guy. So,
Earthquake.
Well, what I like to say is welcome back to Bison Brothers Basketball Podcast. One of your co-hosts, Brian B. Smooth. We got Chip Washington, the host with the most. And we got E-Wash, who is the opposite of smooth today. He's dancing his way off a camera. I don't know. It must have been an earthquake somewhere in Atlanta. Be careful out there. But if you're listening in, just crackling. That's right. Everybody knows about the quake. Shout out to Prince. Shout out to Prince. So we're back, right? We're in our last show of the season before we shift our gears. And just want to make sure that we are setting up to broadcast throughout the off season. So you won't hear recaps as much as you'll hear in-depth interviews from players and coaches and what we like to call the ecosystem of college basketball. So I'm looking forward to some conversations with some of the high school coaches that have shepherded, some of their players our way. Also talked to some of the alum basketball players from early in the time of Howard's basketball program coming together to even just recently with some of the folks who recently left. And we're seeing, what's life like, is it any greener, the pasture any greener when you move on from Howard? So we're going to get into it because end of the day, we want to make sure you understand that there's ways to be fans, not only of the game, but also the process. And so we're looking forward to that. So fellas, we had to make a trip. This one last week was going to beautiful Norfolk, Virginia. And just to set the scene, right? We play in what's called the Scope, which is a pretty historic site in downtown Norfolk. Downtown Norfolk sits right on the water, so it's very beautiful. Every direction you can see water and battleships. You can get some delicious seafood. Shout out to the folks at Saltines Restaurant. They took care of us and made us really enjoy spending more money than we normally would on seafood. But everything was walkable, right? So every time you turned a corner, what I loved about being there was the fact that you saw signs for the MEAC tournament everywhere you went. They had it plastered on the transit system. They had it plastered on all the different restaurants that supported it. So if you hadn't been before, not a lot of fans have made their way to Norfolk for this event in a while. I can tell you that based on logistics, it was a really perfect place to hang out, go get something to eat, and you weren't any more than maybe a quarter of a mile from the stadium, so you could actually park your car and just walk and enjoy all the things going on. So beautiful town, kind of a sleepy hidden town for those who don't make it out their way to the Tidewater region down there. But it's also where there's only one school that represents our MEAC. That's their home base. That's Norfolk State University. And so just to get it out of the way, Chip calls it the evil empire, but both the men and the women, congratulations to both programs. They are representing the MEAC in the respective March Madness tournaments. They both played with a sense of wanting to win the championship. They both played pretty well all year. And so it wasn't out of the ordinary to see them pull it all the way through. There were some potential shocking moments, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But just know the scene was the MEAC tournament was inviting, and it was nice to see, a town that celebrated HBCU basketball. So, tip my hat to the commissioner of the league, as well as the mayor and all of the folks who were in the planning for bringing the tournament there. Right. So, with all that said, we were there for one job only. We were there to win, and so the men came in with the intent on seeing if we could, make it a three-peat, which is very hard to do. Just recall that the last 2 years we've been able to win when we needed to, win the championship, and celebrate where we were going. We found out how far it is to get to Des Moines, Iowa, and why anybody else would go to Des Moines, Iowa, trying to figure that out. But we went because Howard was playing 2 years ago. And we actually went to the first four play-in last year with Dayton, right? Dayton, Ohio, which is setting up to have some pretty good matchups this year too. But in order for us to even have a shot at it, we had to win not one, not two, but 3 games to make it back to the dance. So let's start with what we did, because we didn't get to 3 games with the men. We didn't even get to 2. We got to the first game.
Yeah.
With Morgan State, a team that I believe on paper has made us have to score more points than we want to all the time. I think that was one of our first games. We scored 100 points or so, maybe second of the season. So we have a tendency to be high scoring, and this one didn't disappoint, right? So let's jump into it, because I can tell you in the grand scheme of things, this was the highest scoring game of the entire tournament. So, if you were in for basketball and scoring and seeing good shooting and maybe not so good shooting, it was good to see so many good scorers from both teams. So, you're in for a treat when we played. So talk about it a little bit. What you guys, let's recap this one, because this is a quick one.
Yes. Yes. Eric, I don't know who wants to go first on this. Wonderful.
I'll go first, just from this standpoint. I'm gonna go with a football reference instead of Bird this time. We're gonna go with Dennis Green from the Cardinals when they played the Bears. We are who we thought we were.
Oh, I like that. I like that.
I kind of kept telling myself, man, the trends that we kept seeing all year, they're gonna overcome that, and so I got a little in my feelings when it seemed like it was getting away. I said, dang, can't believe this is happening, because what's also rolled up into we are who we thought we are, you know what I'm trying to say, is that I'm still a glass half full person. And the fact that they came back showed me that they still play hard. They got a lot of fight in them. They clearly have talent. But we also got some things to work on. And I don't think that, truth be told, we were going to get around it this go round. And I just, I couldn't get out of my feelings. I told you I'm in couples therapy, You did give us early warning. want to see when you're in your feelings. You know?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 So,
Yeah. I would add that we talked about it in the lead-in episode and the preview that a lot of things had to go right for us to have a chance to make a run towards the championship. And I will say, from a bright spot perspective, my appeals to Anwar Gill seemed to really pan out because he played one of his best games on Thursday when we met up with Morgan State and talking with him a little bit after the game. We joked around a little bit because he says, "Man, you were coming for me." I said, "Well, I see the potential. You bigger than these dudes, and I need you to play like that because when you play big, they have to deal with you. They know they got to go against Blake." And shout out to Blake. He did get Player of the Year honors and Rookie of the Year honors. First time that's happened in program history. But this wasn't the Blake show. We saw late in the season that once you could box in Blake a little bit, everybody else had to show up. So Anwar showed up. We actually had really good shooting from OKK and Johnson. So again, we scored 90 points. So scoring wasn't the problem. It was turnovers and defense for me.
Yeah.
And so when we were not able to control Mr. Hobbs, aka the doppelganger for Kendrick Lamar, he played like he was not like us. He played like he was not like us because he went into mode and scored about 33 points, and his effort alone kept them in the game. We never could get further than that. But to your point, there was a point about 2 minutes left in the game where we were down about 10, maybe even 12. And I said, it's only 4 possessions, but for us, it always is like, how do we execute at the end of games? And there was a stretch there for almost a minute and a half, minute 40, where, we got turnovers, we could score, we kept getting turnovers, and we actually took the lead with 16 seconds left. And with that 16 seconds left, my heart was able to say, I'm hopeful. At that point, I was just, don't make us embarrassed for being down here and not playing like we need to. So there was a moment in there that last 2 minutes, there was about a minute, 30, 40 seconds where that was the team I thought we were going to see most of the year, where they were getting the steals, getting in front of people, making it hard to score. And so the ball didn't bounce for us at the end. I mean, Hobbs came down, made an incredible shot right down the middle of the lane, and we had a shot to win. And I think that's what I take away from this is, for us to go out, we had a chance to win. So it wasn't like we were hoping to make a last-second shot just to tie the game. We had a chance to literally win the game. So it was heartbreaking for me. Chip, what about you, man?
So yeah, I kind of echo what both of you all said. At first my narrative was going to be we didn't have the percentages that we normally had, because I remember thinking during the game we could have made a few more free throws that might have made a difference, but we actually shot above our season average on free throw percentage. We were about the same with 3-point percentage. And I didn't check the field goal, but I suspect we were probably right around there. So to your point, Brian, everybody came to play. They brought everything that we needed. We just, right at the end didn't come up. And when I saw it, it was almost like slow motion. And this is no blame on Jaren Johnson, because he's a great defensive player. But it was like when I saw it, I was doing this as the play was happening. Because Jaren, I don't know which way he was trying to send him, but I saw Jaren. He kind of shifted to the left on Hobbs, and Hobbs took that fake and then started going left, and that's when I saw the lane open up like the Red Sea. I was like, oh, this might not end well.
Oh yeah.
And so when I saw him driving in, and it was still a tough shot that he made, because it wasn't like it was a beautiful teardropper. It was he was in amongst the trees, but hey, he got the shot in. Hat tip to Cameron Hobbs. He sent us home. But like you said, we played. I was glad that we competed to the end. We never saw them not compete this whole season. Even we didn't have everybody. We had some standout performances. My man Dunk Master Flex had, I want to say it was 10 rebounds.
He did.
And hey, he everybody left it all out on the floor. We just didn't come up with the dub.
Yeah.
It was disappointing, I think that, what was that? Look, I'll throw it up here. The last episode, we said it was going to be three-peat or heartbreak.
Heartbreak. That's right.
And we got our answer. It was a
Heartbreak.
heartbreak. So
it was a MEAC heartbreak. Shout out to New Edition. It was a MEAC heartbreak.
Yeah.
No. So to your point, man, I again, being there in person, you get the highs and the lows, and spend some quality time with most of the players after the game. Of course, Dockery and a couple other guys, Bryce, Harris, they were all down because they knew what it felt like to win, right? And I was laughing with Bryce Harris because he was like, man, it feels weird when you know the answers to the test, but you can't take the test for everybody, right? And so Seth Towns came in town. He came down from Harvard for the week, and he was sitting on the sideline, and this is the healthiest I've ever seen him. He usually wears like a Iron Man apparatus on his knees and shoulders because he was always kind of busted up and broken. But he said, I feel so good, man. I felt like I had a few more minutes in me. I just wanted to get in and see if we could pull it over. I said, I know. So everybody who was a champion who was there, you could see the look. The heartbreak was the hardest for them because they know that it was within reach. Because when you looked at the subsequent games, if our team had played like they played in that minute or 40 towards the end of the game against Norfolk and against South Carolina State, we had a shot. So we saw glimpses of it. I will tell you this, that not having everybody available, it took its toll. And we had a record number of people with concussions and just injuries that you couldn't bounce back from. So, we didn't have the full complement of players that would have been interesting to maybe at different points of the game because, we saw that. But I do think that what was cool was the way Johnson, OKK, Anwar, as well as Blake all kind of gelled together. Even Taiwo had some pretty good minutes early in the game. So, no, I'm disappointed because we just weren't able to stretch it out. It wasn't a game where I said, why are we here? Why do we, if we're not going to bring our game, why do we even play? The team was locked in. We knew that Morgan State was locked in as well. They just seemed to have one more shot than we had, and a score of 91-90 that that everybody was scoring the way they needed to. So it felt like an NBA game in terms of the scoring. So again, the run ended maybe earlier than we thought. We thought we'd have another game in us on that Friday. Shout out to Howard University for bringing a busload of kids students to come watch the games on Friday. They actually anticipated us playing Friday evening, so they were going to bring everybody in to watch the ladies play the semifinal in the afternoon, have a little reception, and then go see the guys in the evening. So everybody's like, so what do we do now after the ladies game? I said, best time to get back on the bus. So like I said, it was one of those things where you're like, yeah, we can figure it out. But when we get to the over-under reactions, I have some commentary for us to consider when it comes to Bison Nation and tournament play and how to essentially bring the party with us, because there's a way to do that. It became very apparent for me over the 3 or 4 days I was in Norfolk. But enough about the guys. They did what they could. They ended. They bowed down to the Bears because we just couldn't close the deal, and that made it tougher because we were really looking forward to a rematch with Norfolk State, because I do believe that whoever won the Norfolk State matchup there was going to be in contention to win the overall thing, which Norfolk did by the hair of their chinny chin chin. Okay, so let's switch gears.
Right.
The ladies came in a solid second seed. They had a terrific season by all accounts. The only one who had a better season record-wise was Norfolk State, because they went undefeated in conference play. We only lost 2 games. They just happened to be to Norfolk State. And so coming into this season tournament, we knew that we had to march through, and based on the competition, there was going to be an inevitable matchup with Norfolk State for the championship. So we actually had one of the first games of the tournament. That's why I got in a little early last week, because I wanted to see every Howard game I could watch. And, starting off, there was really no issue. What do you call it? Rinse and repeat, lather, rinse, repeat, Chip.
Mm-hmm.
Do we get that in the first game? I would offer to you yes, because when we went against the ladies of Delaware State, they were no match for what we brought. I think we were up big most of the game. The final score 85-49. The game was never in jeopardy. It felt like a practice. Felt like everybody was getting their legs under them and shooting around. So, Destiny played well. Sanaya, did really well. Z-Pain, Zanaya Thomas was able to do what she does. So it was rinse and repeat for the first game, and it helped because Norfolk State did the same thing to their opponent. So we saw the two biggest teams come out early and say we're not playing around, right?
Yeah,
right. And
what?
Go ahead.
Second game was what the Hawks.
Yeah, Eastern Shore, and they play us tough, man. They play us tough.
Yeah,
right.
I can't remember if I texted you or Eric, but Maryland Eastern Shore, their first round game, when I saw them play, I was like, oh, they look like they're gonna bring the noise when they play, and that they did. I knew it was gonna be a tougher game than kind of in the regular season. So I was impressed that we were able to pull it out. But UMass definitely gave us a game. I can't remember. I think it was wasn't Haynes. I thought her last name was Johnson, but I don't see it on there. But I think she was the point guard for University of Maryland Eastern Shore, and she was awesome. On a mission to take the Bison down. I could see the disgust in her face when they didn't pull it out at the end. I think it was Lynch because she fouled out. But it was a tougher game than I anticipated before I saw them play their first round game. But like I said, after I saw them play their first round game, I was like, oh, they probably gonna give us a run, and that they did. So
yeah, they give us trouble on the perimeter, really good solid guard play, and their inside presence is really good too. So they weren't allowing us to do what we like to do in the paint. So the coach for University of Maryland Eastern Shore is really sharp, and I can see that she's building a program similar to what Ty Grace is doing. So it's kind of watching the beginnings of a program that Ty Grace has put in place for the last 10 years. You can see them, trying to build down low, play defense, and get some really good guard play. So I see them being formidable opponents in years to come, because if they just keep building and they can keep their talent, they're going to be there. But I'm glad they won their first matchup, University of Maryland Eastern Shore, because they did come in with a level of confidence, because they played us pretty close all year. And the final score may make it seem like it was a wider margin of victory. I think it was like 67-59, but it felt closer than that most of the game, because we just never could get away and get a big run. So it did what we wanted it to do, because once we won that game, we know for sure that we were playing in Saturday's big matchup against the evil empire, right?
Yes.
And it was so good. It was so good. I think Eric, you're on mute. I can't hear you right now.
Yep.
Did we lose Eric?
That's how important this commentary was.
Oh my gosh. That means the FCC is listening. FCC is listening. FCC is listening. So we'll do this while he's trying to come back in. So so like I said, for us, getting to Championship Saturday was the goal, and the number 1 and number 2 seeds did exactly what they needed to do to set up a pretty formidable run. And so I was excited about that, because for those listening in, it was the first game that at least 2 of the 3 of us from Bison Brothers Basketball podcast, 2 of us you hear the voices of right now, were able to be there in person. So our commitment to being fans first was tested, because we were able to make sure we were in the building and in the place to be, really up basically courtside, right behind the bench, cheering as hard as we could for a victory. So Chip, I'll let you open up, because at that point, this was your first MEAC tourney, and I want to make sure that you can talk about it from your perspective, because I'll add some color in there, but it was cool to see it from your eyes. So what did you see for Championship Saturday, rather?
So, I think coming into the game, right? So this is my first time, getting down to Scope Arena. I think you guys had told me the crowd, hadn't been big up until then, because when I walked in, I was like, hey, it's a lot of people here, but it's a championship game. So I was just like, I was impressed with the crowd. Of course, the green and gold Norfolk, they brought their people out, but I like how FCC.
Oh,
But yeah, no, I was impressed. I was impressed with the crowd side. I liked the enthusiasm of the Bison fans that were
yeah.
there. There were
Yeah.
it was, I mean, when we were chanting defense, you could feel, it was like, and you could see the team like they needed every chant from Bison Nation
Mm-hmm.
fueling them and getting them on. So I really appreciated Bison Nation for coming out and coming to Scope Arena and making their presence felt. So, it was, as far as the game, that, like I said, it was number one, number two, the hype was there. The only thing that was kind of I guess it was I don't even say it was a disappointing thing, but you could see from the tip, like Norfolk wanted to take our hearts out. Like they were, I mean, I surprised all of their players didn't get tired because they just looked super intense on defense, on offense. And I felt like we were playing more like a regular season, energy and atmosphere. So it wasn't until maybe like the middle of the second quarter when we came back, because we got down, it was down 20-14, for the first quarter. And 20, it felt bigger. Felt like we were down more at the end of the first quarter, but but it was, like I said, they were in the passing. Norfolk was in the passing lanes. They were blocking shots. I mean, you could just see the intensity that they had, and so I think it took a minute for our squad to kind of realize, hey, this is for all the gusto here, and Norfolk ain't playing around. So that was just, it was like we were too cool during the game, and we needed to be more, hey, we about to get up in y'all too. So, because I remember screaming throughout most of the game, like, hey, we got a championship defense too. Put it on them. Don't let them just dictate with their energy to us. We got the same type of dogs. Put it on them. So,
to kind of stay in my relationship theme, I had blinders on, so I forgot about they had to come back from the opening tip of being down by double digits.
That's right.
Because in my mind I was like, oh man, they done got it close. Even Destiny Howe was out there looking like magic a couple of times. She threw some nice little dishes, man. I was like, yes, they about to do this, man. I was excited, man. And
You said, and yeah. So
I'm sorry. So the Bito Chips thing, instead of saying they the evil empire, I'm gonna just go with Mike Fratello. So you can't have a league without a villain. So we just gonna say they the villain.
Sure. I buy all of that. And the Norfolk State team, the Lady Spartans played like they wanted it more. And that was a little bit disappointing, because we knew if the matchup was there, and again, I got a chance to see our ladies before the game, and just getting ready, and visibly they look locked in. And I would only wonder if maybe they were too locked in. Sometimes when you're locked in, you play your best, and sometimes when you're locked in, you start trying not to play your worst. And we saw a couple of stats that jumped out at me based on, and because the eye test was there, and Chip, we were watching it, and every time we seemed to be making a run, there seemed to be just an inopportune turnover, right? And we either threw a bit of a lazy pass across court, or over someone's head, like uncharacteristic turnovers for us. And we know with a team like Norfolk, they feed off of turnovers. So, for us to have almost double the number of turnovers that Norfolk committed, we spotted them 10. We closed the gap. I think third period was when it got really interesting, because they outscored us 16-6, and that was it. So we didn't have another run to close the gap again, and so we're spending our time trying to catch up, and we just and then they got even hotter, right? So while we were still trying to figure out how to catch up, Diamond and Wheeler, they all started playing.
You said that I'm gonna give Chip some flowers here, because I'll be honest, I did not know who Diamond was before the season started, but here's a non-Larry Bird reference for you. She was looking like James Worthy on that baseline, spinning around people, and she's short. I was like, dang, man, how she just...
Yeah.
And she did it from both sides, like zip, boom, zip, boom. I was like, dang.
Her ability to ball, her ability to ball was unquestioned.
Yeah,
like,
man. I was like, oh my goodness.
A moment for me, I think, was when Diamond Johnson blocked Destiny Howe's 3-pointer.
Yes.
I was like, okay, she 5, whatever. Destiny 6 feet.
6
but
feet,
it was that dog, that intensity that allowed her to be in the right spot. And I was just like, okay, she's bringing her A game. So
we picked the wrong time to play our least efficient basketball, because this is the first time that I couldn't say rinse and repeat for the Lady Bison, because we did start off strong. We start off slow, but really slow. We did play stronger in a team. We always said, we giving flowers to Chip today. So Chip, you said when we were winning and it was not the efficient way, you're like, hey, we're not winning like we need to in case we got to play Norfolk. And so we went against a team that could capitalize on every mistake we made. It's only one other team. It's the only team in the league that can do that. There's only one team in our league that could capitalize on every mistake we made. And Saturday we were right for it. When 21 turnovers, you can't win when you go against a team that can capitalize on every one of them. Right. Yeah. So we lost the championship. We were there. I was proud of Bison Nation, everybody who traveled in from Maryland, DC, came up from the Carolinas, Georgia. We had people who traveled in for this game. I will say that when we get into the next segment, we'll talk a little bit about more opportunities for us to bring Bison Nation and have all the crowds feel us, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So anything else on this recap, man? I can tell you that Norfolk was beautiful. They had some really nice set out a lot of nice stuff for everybody. Unfortunately, the parties that they had, it seemed the livest were, and everybody was trying to leave town. So for those of us who were trying to get up out of Dodge, we didn't get to see the coolest parties, but everybody was welcoming. There was never an establishment that made us feel like we shouldn't have been spending money in Norfolk, right? So shout out to Norfolk for creating an atmosphere that was pro HBCU, especially in this political environment we're in now. So very excited about that.
I tell you, man, you painted a great picture of the experience. I had to remind myself, like, oh, I did used to live in Tidewater. So. That's the same place.
No, it's the same place. So what was also cool, E, was that because the MEAC tournament brings out most people who are HBCU grads or affiliated, it wasn't weird to see a lot of folks in the crowd with Hampton shirts on, or with North Carolina A&T garb on and paraphernalia. Everybody who had any connection to the MEAC was there. FAMU. There were people there that just said, I'm pro HBCU. And there were some teams that aren't in HBCU conferences anymore that were like, man, I wish we were back in here, because you miss it, right? When you realize that this is for us, kind of by us, right? FUBU. It's hard when you realize you're not in that anymore. So it was really cool. Like I said, every establishment wanted us to be there. So from a where I spend my money, where I spent my time, I did not regret spending extra days in Norfolk. I do think that, if we could move the conference around a little bit, it'd be nice to see if we could pull off the similar feeling in maybe some other areas. But I just want to make sure I said that out loud, because sometimes we complain when we're in certain places for too long. But when a city seems to want us to be there, we got to take note of that. All right. So Chip, why don't you get us a little bit of dance break, man? We'll come back and see if we can get into the over under reactions after we hear what's good for basketball. Coming back in a few.
Want to give us a little bit more.
Oh, look at the DJ. I see you, DJ.
Yeah.
DJ Chip Washington. Move over, D Nice. We have a new DJ in town that's ready to
That's right.
Get us all in our feelings. So thank you for the Showtime marching band from Howard University, continuing to bring the vibe to our show all season. I'm B. Foston, one of your hosts of Bison Brothers Basketball. Welcome back to one of our favorite parts of the show. We have Chip Washington and E-Wash that we've been holding it steady for 18 weeks now, trying to make sure that we could bring perspective, right? Colorful perspective to our fan experiences, as well as our unique desire to want to promote all things basketball at Howard University. And so we're going to get into some over-under reactions from the season. But before we do, E-Wash, who's in couples therapy, is going to spend a little bit of time giving us a little bit about what's good for basketball. So E-Wash, what's good for basketball?
Well, thank you for that. First of all,
you're welcome, kind sir. You're welcome.
What is good? I'm going to go back a little bit. You know, they say the worst thing you can do in counseling is to bring up old stuff, but you know.
We didn't say the counseling was working. We said you were in counseling. That's cool.
But one of my best memories, though, was of Chip brought to my attention the show that was on Apple TV. It's Bigger Than Basketball about Maker McClure, and you know that was sort of my first time really going, wow, you know, it sort of to me was a antecedent. There you go for a $10 word. B.
I like that.
To Dion and Jackson State and all that. You know, it's like, wow, man, we really getting some notoriety here, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And ironically enough, my biggest takeaway was, you know, even though, you know, I was appreciated the young man and his journey and always wish him well, always consider him a Bison and all of that, you know, what seemed to prove to be true was that no one person is bigger than the program. And so, yeah, you know, whatever happens after this season, it's still bigger, or the basketball is bigger than one team, one teammate, or one person, or one loss, or one level of disappointment. You know, it's bigger than that. You know, we trying to build something that's gonna ring on, you know. And I can say that even being disappointed with the ending, that they have increased or affirmed my love for basketball by the way they played, you know, the human interest about it, the coaches, you know, emphasizing the way they play as opposed to an individual. And so to see us now after him leaving, you know, God bless him, but to see us grow after he left is like, wow, you know, all that fretting and hand wringing, and look at where we are. So, you know, we seem to now be in a place where we expect to win. We expect to get talent. We expect to whatever. We got NIL now. That's not just conjecture. It's like, hey, man, you know what? Just got to stay true to the game, man. And so that's all of those things to me are good for basketball.
See, I knew it. It's Chip is because he's dressed in his day job right now. That brother's making sense. He used antecedent as part of his description, so I know that brother studied. He studied everything. So, Dr. Washington, that was awesome.
Yeah, and he, you know, like I said, and he brought up great points that we've been trying to, you know, preach the gospel to Bison Nation, like especially the old school Bison Nation that still may not know that yes, we got the championship DNA, the structure of the program is the foundation is laid. So it's only up from here. So yeah, you watch, that was excellent point. Like we have the type of program that is going to survive a player leaving or a disappointing loss at the end of the season. I mean, because if the same team won the championship every year, nobody would play the game. So keeps it exciting. So definitely that's good for basketball. So
yeah, as Coach Robert Jones says, them DC dudes are just to keep the trophy, make everybody else sad. That coach is weird, but that's okay. Coach that's my guy.
Jones.
I saw him at breakfast. I saw him at breakfast before the game. I said, "Hey man, weren't you the coach of the year?" He said, "Not this year." I said, "Oh yeah, my bad. Yeah. Maybe."
Shout out to Coach Jones. He did win most outstanding coach for the tournament. So,
and he definitely had the most outstanding comeback for the trophy being in DC too long. No one else would have said it that way. No one else would have said it that way.
Right.
So his old girlfriend that came home after 2 years. He can work on that. That's couples counseling right there. That's he may float him a referral. So but yeah, man, that was perfect. So here's what we're gonna do. We have some time today where I don't think we said it too many times today, but our season is not done, right? So the ladies, although they weren't able to pull out the victory we were looking for on Saturday, we did receive word shortly after the tournament wrapped up in Norfolk that for the women's NIT, which is where the teams go play if they don't make the big March Madness tournament, right? NCAA tournament, we received an automatic bid because of our record of being 21-11 on the season. And as a result of being able, that's right, just give it up before. So not only are we in that tournament, we actually get the privilege, not the right, but the privilege to host the opening game of that tournament on Friday, the March 21st. So whenever you consume this, just know that, we're having this conversation that we had originally planned for it when we wrapped up, or we were talking about where we were heading for March Madness, but we are heading somewhere. We're actually heading to a tournament, and it's right back to the BURR. So shout out to the Lady Bison, Coach Ty Grace and staff for building a program that was worthy enough for an automatic bid in a conference. So we're excited about that. Chip, I believe you're going to make a trip to be there as part of the Bison Basketball Brothers podcast and hosting team. You're going to be able to see what you can come back with from the BURR. So we're excited about what you pick up as being there in the building. But before we get there, we want to do a little bit of underreaction and a little bit of recap from the year. It's not going to be long because there's some more season to play, but let's take a moment and see if we can at least reflect. We remember we spent every week for the previous 17 weeks always coming back saying what is an over and underreaction for the season. And now that the season has concluded for our guys and is on the verge of maybe a couple more games for our ladies to see how far they can go, what are some over and under reactions that you want to share with the folks and the fans here? Who'd like to go first?
It's gonna be scary. All right, everybody's quiet. I'll jump out. I'll jump out in the lake first.
Okay.
So I got asterisks to this overreaction.
Wow.
But assuming everybody comes back,
okay, that's asterisk.
Next year's team is going to be way better than this team. It's the crop coming in and everybody coming back that's eligible to come back. Just because, KB said that this was his best team ever this year before the injuries. He said this was the best team. But I'm saying, I'm looking at who we got coming in and who could possibly stay next year. Next year is gonna be that's gonna be the one.
That's the kind of opening I would look for from you. Your gift for hyperbole is unparalleled. It's unparalleled. there's not a subtle take in anything you just said right now. Okay. All right, let me see if I can add to the level of hyperbolic levels you're getting to right here. So I would say that in looking back on the season, I'm glad we were right about the impact of some of the key players that you speak of, right? So Blake Harper winning Player of the Year and Rookie of the Year. We said that. We said there was no reason why he shouldn't, because
actually, Brian, I give you your flowers, because that was one of your earlier overreactions. We saw Rookie of the Year. That was a no-brainer.
right.
But when you said he was going to be Player of the Year, I was like, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be tight. But
well, the press for him picked up at the right time. This is a narrative more than it is the scoring stats and all that stuff, and even your team winning. For him to go from a 0-star recruit and a towel boy to a star player, I mean, who doesn't love a good story of comeuppance, right? So that's where you're saying, hey, this guy came out of nowhere and became a star. But here's the deal. Here's where I go hyperbolic with you. I believe that we will have not only a better team, but we'll be playing for the chip. We're going to play for the chip. Like, not just a better team, but we're going to play for the championship. We'll be there. The men's team will be there, and the women's team will be back in the chip next year, because both teams will reload, and we will be back. Championship Saturday will be Howard Championship Saturday in 2026. So that's my hyperbolic. That's my hyperbolic piece right here.
Well, I usually don't get on those kind of bandwagons, but I think I'm gonna one up both of you guys this time, because in some of my preparation, I watched a lot of coaches' interviews, Coach KB's interviews. And I rewatched his interview with Clark Kellogg. And so Clark Kellogg started asking him, well, what is your vision? What do you see? And he started talking about, beyond everything we talking about right now. And I said to myself, yeah, why can't we win the national championship? Forget the MEAC championship. Why we can't win the national championship?
I like it.
I said, yeah.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, think about it, Chip. You brought up the Gonzaga analogy and this and that, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I thought about, going to go back to my DI reference when they started asking Shedeur Sanders, well, how are you in a position to say, what you're going to do in the league? And this and that. He said, hey, man, I've already rebuilt 2 programs. Well, hey, man, we've already had an NBA player. Why not, man? Why not?
Hey, I'm with you. And I want to piggyback on my own overreaction, because I think
let's go higher.
No, I think the women's team and the men's team, with who we got coming in, and who will stick around, will be even better. And the hype for this year's women's team was off the charts. But next year, next year, and I would encourage Bison Nation, you can go back to, I think it's episode 6. Go back to this episode. That's when we recapped all of the commits coming to Howard. You check that out.
Okay.
Check that out, and you will see why my overreaction is really not an overreaction. Because to Eric's point, both the men and the women's team I see making a run in the NCAA tournament. So yeah, I'm with
you. I'm so proud of the reveal of your common DNA. I was worried that some of the laughing gas that Eric has access to, he had taken a hit on just before he got on air here, because there's levels to this stuff. What I can say is that maybe there's an opportunity for us to see the caliber of players that would make it even possible for us to compete for the national championship coming our way, because again, the climate is telling us that people can go somewhere for their talent but not their whole person. And if we can figure out how to compete with our collectives and NIL, there's an opportunity for us to attract a mix of players. I remember when Kerry Davis first started his stint as athletic director, he said, we're always only a couple of players away from making a splash in the tournament. So if we can figure out how to get a nucleus of 3, to 4 guys who can play, or even with your reference early in the season, Chip, where you said we should be modeled more like South Carolina and our women's team, getting the best of the best talent to come to Howard doesn't seem like a stretch if we put the resources behind it, right? So it's all resource driven. So I don't think it's a matter of just the players and even the coaches who are talented enough to do it. It is an infrastructure problem. And if we can solve that, we have a chance, because all we have to do is say, how do we invest in that infrastructure? That's also part of why we do this podcast, because we know that we can help influence who supports that infrastructure. So as long as we still have some gaps in supporting infrastructure, I may not be able to leap all the way to the national championship, but we should be perennially playing in the tournament. But I understand now.
I'm gonna go.
I was going to say what I was going to tell you is that there is a math thing that happens every time we win our conference tournament, where we won it the first time, we got a certain amount of money, and we won it the second time, we got double that amount. And if we had won it a third time, it would have been quadruple. So there's a monetary benefit for winning the conferences we're in repeatedly. And that's what helps us build some of the infrastructure we need for the program as well. So I'm with you. You all jumped way out there. I love these. This is like,
hey, and
we didn't play for the championship. We didn't play for the championship, but we could.
I'm gonna throw one more at you, B. I'm gonna go to your state. I'm gonna go to your state of Indiana.
Okay.
And we gonna remember Butler almost beat Duke. Let's not forget.
I do. I remember that.
Butler.
I remember that.
And then they went back after they lost Gordon Hayward, which gets back to the theme. Mm-hmm. They lost Gordon Hayward and went back to the national championship. So
they did.
Hey, why not, man?
That's it's my guy right there. That's my guy right there. I like that. I like that type of thinking right there.
It took an entire podcast season to get there, but he's finally opened it up.
Yes.
So are there any other underreactions before we wrap up today's show? Because we got overcovered. Any underreactions to share with the fans of Bison Nation?
It's kind of hard to have an underreaction after those overreactions. So,
all right. Yeah. Well, I'll start with one, and if that's the only one, we'll leave it with that. And this is my appeal. This is my look into the camera moment, and this is not for any of our players. So, Anwar, relax. Dom, relax. OKK, relax. Right. This is really an appeal to those that are listeners of the show and those who share the show, those we like to call members of Bison Nation. I mentioned early in the show that my trip down to Norfolk was my third in a row. And each time I was going earlier and earlier so that I could get a better feel for what the tournament experience had to offer. And so as a basketball fan, mentioned very early, every game in the men's bracket was basically down to the last possession. So if you like quality basketball, you got a chance to experience that. The highs and the lows, because every game came down to a last second shot. For the ladies, you got a chance to see what it meant to be purely dominant, not only for our conference play, but all season long. And so you had a chance to see what happens when you have consistent investment in playing well from a basketball perspective. The challenge I have, the underreaction is Bison Nation, we have to travel. And that's right. I don't know what's going to take for us to get to the point where, Chip, with one of your alma maters, Kentucky, when they play, they bring bus loads and RV loads of fans to wherever they're going to play. And you know they're there because you start seeing all the colors as they're coming into town. The flags, the little, tailgate areas, anything that you can have kind of kicks in, right? And so for me, I'm telling Bison Nation that while there had been some complaints about us being in Norfolk, and because it's an unfair advantage to Norfolk State on paper, I submit to you that no place we go is a destination problem. We had more people go to Des Moines, Iowa, than we've had consistently go to BURR. So when we're thinking about it, when the lights are the brightest, we seem to show up. We need to be in the building every game. We need to have a section where people know we're here, and it needs to be so packed in there that they actually got to pay attention to what seat you have, because that's how many people come in. So my underreaction is that when I was hanging out with our ladies team and they had just won a very convincing semifinal game. And after the game, they were outside waiting to go get on their bus so they could head back to the hotel. My wife and I were the only fans that were out there that weren't related to the team. And the sadder part for us, and this is where we're starting from, this is why we started the podcast, is most of our teams who travel all around, they barely see anybody besides their parents, don't believe they're ever going to really see fans. They don't know that we even exist. That's why when we do this and people say, can I come on the podcast? You guys really love us. That's why this is an important thing that we're doing, because people realize there are fans that are willing to talk about the sports people participate in. Basketball just happens to be the love of those of us on the show. But my underreaction for the season is that we do not have a destination problem when it comes to going to games. We just have a Bison Nation problem. We need to ensure that before we start talking big, before we worry about winning a national championship, we need to fill up some butts and seats. We need to be present.
That's what's
they
up.
Need to hear us. They need to see us. They need to know that they have fans that they can count on being there to support them, whether it's at BURR or in the Burg, Orangeburg, South Carolina, because that's a place that people don't travel to unless they have to. We need to be everywhere. So that's my underreaction.
Amen. Amen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I said,
there is nothing else to say. There is.
That's why we do what we do, and it's because we know that for everything we see that's a possibility for success, a big part of that is infrastructure, and that's not just good meals and workout facilities and sleeping facilities on campus, right? It's knowing that you got a game that's going to be packed out and your crowd is actually a part of the game. Like, people should be nervous to come to the BURR because that's how loud we are. And they know that when they come in here, they got to play their best game because we just going to rattle them because that's how much we do. Right?
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
All right. Well,
so
you really make me want to take a little personal moment, man, because I'm gonna shout out my youngest son, Asa, man. He's not a basketball player, but because both of my kids have had played football in high school, I was afforded the opportunity to participate in the booster club, to your point, B. And to go to all of these different schools and to see how fired up people get to talk about the coaches and complain about this, that, and the third. But then you don't see that level of support when it's time to financially support them, to give of your time and talent. It's easy to backseat drive and criticize and this and that. And so I appreciate what you're saying, because it's really a lesson for us on all levels. For those of you who are really paying attention, that's a behavior we can emulate in all walks of life, because those kids are watching. And to your point, I don't even like saying the name, but I want to say I was in Ross, but I hope I wasn't in Target. Right. And a young man approached me while I was getting ready to check out. And I was like, man, where do I know this kid from? And he said, Mr. Washington, I'm on the football team. Because you there passing out the meals, you come to all the games. I said, wow, these kids are really paying attention to what we do. So you are spot on. And what the reason I brought my son up, because he wants to go to Howard. And I want him to have the penultimate experience. I don't want him to have the disappointment experience. You know what I mean? So you right on it, man. You right on it, Beast Move.
I appreciate that, brother.
Right
And you did use penultimate, so that's bonus points there. So Chip, I know. As we've told people in the past, as a reminder, the recaps, we have one more in us to see how it wraps up with our ladies season. So look forward to that one last recap. But we have so much in store for the off season. We're lining up a number of interviews with our head coaches and their staffs, players, not only current players, but former players, as well as incoming players and some of the coaches that they love, right? So we're going to have a full kind of 360-degree view of everybody connected with Howard basketball over the off season. So we look forward to that because, again, we're trying to build fans one episode at a time. And we have a chance to see if we can really make Bison Nation more active than we are today. So with that, Chip, why don't you close us out for the season here?
Bison Nation, we at the end of the regular season, the tournament. We got one more actually more than one more, because they're gonna win the first game of the NIT on Friday.
That's right.
And then they're gonna go to College of Charleston and whoop up on them and keep on going. So we're doing this because we want y'all to continue to support that championship culture, that dog mentality, the Mecca Made, Dream Factory. Support all of these basketball teams and programs and just keep doing it. You can do it in so many ways. You can donate to the Name, Image, and Likeness Society, the Mecca Society, at themeccasociety.org. You can go to hubison.com, give to athletics, or you can give through the Bison's Booster Express Club. Do what you can. Do it. We're going to keep you informed on how to continue to monetarily support these programs. And as always, go to the games. If you're in DC, go to the BURR. Travel around wherever the teams are, go visit. They're looking for us. They're hungry for Bison Nation in the stands. So make it happen. And as always, please continue to tell everybody about this podcast, the Bison Brothers Basketball Podcast, your number one home for all things Bison basketball. You can hear us on YouTube, Spotify, on Apple. You can interact with us on Instagram at Bison Brothers Basketball. So share the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, hit the like button on the podcast, tell everybody. And we're going to end this episode like we end them all. Fellas, you know how we do.
No. One shining moment, baby. One shining moment.